Julian Newman, once a viral basketball sensation known for his flashy skills, seemed destined for greatness. But in a fateful matchup, LaMelo Ball, now an NBA superstar, stepped onto the court and changed everything. This is the night LaMelo Ball humbled Julian Newman. Julian Newman, the son of Jamie Newman, a man who didn't make it up to the college level but wanted his son to, pushed him all the way till not college basketball. Talk less of the NBA. A product of hard work and consistency, Julian proved himself ready for the next big thing, as he himself was rumored to be the next big thing. Even after dominating all of high school, Julian later came out short, as he most likely doesn't have any sort of shot in the NBA anymore. Unlike his counterpart, LaMelo Ball, having ball in his name, you'd know it's been written in the stars that he was gonna shine, as he's still shining currently in the NBA, playing for the Charlotte Hornets. Unlike his counterpart, his determination to greatness was like no other, powering through several leagues before landing the ultimate dream, which was a place in the NBA after being the top pick in the NBA draft that year. He suffered a series of injuries, but is back better this season, as he's already started hitting it off. But the match was underway, and as naturally, even with the presence of a prodigy player in Julian Newman, the odds were still stacked up highly against them. Spires were bigger and taller, and obviously had more experience than any one of them on the other side. The game started, and immediately LaMelo started balling. From the time the game began, one could tell that this was a one-sided game. As the Spire boys floored Jamie and his team instantly. From the very beginning of the game, the scoreline had begun to solidify, as the sheer class of Spire Academy shone brightly against the Downey team. To think the game would be competitive and end to end, it didn't take the spectators a long time to figure out the reality of things. Despite the social media hype and supporters that stood solidly behind Julian, backing him to do better than LaMelo in the game.
Huge game. You're gonna have UCLA, Kentucky, Louisville, USC, Western Kentucky, Dayton, Baylor. Everybody's here tomorrow.
But once again, the lack of fundamental knowledge of the game let Julian down, as his dazzling game and over-the-top movements and shooting was completely neutralized, as if Julian was pushed to a really tight corner as he couldn't do shot. LaMelo's playmaking ability was so obvious, as his layups were superb, and just a complete joy to watch. At a point, it seemed like LaMelo had the players of Downey School attached to a string like puppets and controlling their every move while he was doing the same thing for his own team and racking them points. Confusion was all around the Downey camp. As they even got to the second half of the game, Spire Academy took the game less seriously and were still beating the crap out of Julian Newman and Downey Christian School, performing double alley hoops and even self alley hoops. It showed that the level that these guys had gotten to, Spire Academy, was an unstoppable force that the Newmans could not compete against. Team against any other team in the world. I mean, Curry, LeBron, KD, the United States basketball team shouldn't even be allowed to play in the Olympics. That doesn't look legal at all. But let's not take it all away from Julian. LaMelo had a bit of an advantage, as he was still very fresh off playing professionally for the Lithuanian team Prienai. In other words, it made no sense to compare them both. So he came back to complete his senior year and was immediately back playing for the team he left before, Spire Academy. What made the loss really significant was the fact that people judged based off the skills and displays of Julian on YouTube and social media. While LaMelo wasn't on social media displaying his plays and videos of him balling, he still remains an amazing player, and it was pretty evident. That game got a lot of buzz and generated attention from all over, cementing himself as the greatest ever high school baller, ripping that title off Julian Newman. LaMelo lived up to the hype, putting down threes, tearing down the opponent's defense with mind-blowing passes, and dictating the gameplay. Julian, on the other hand, couldn't keep up, as everything he could do was countered by the opposition. While LaMelo Ball was orchestrating plays and puppeteering the flow of the entire court both on offense and defense, Julian was busy whining all about the court. Probably should be the worst game he ever had. Running around the court like a headless chicken, his lack of fundamental knowledge about the art of basketball humbled him completely, as he was left on the ground time after time after time, after constantly failing to orchestrate any sort of good plays. The defense was basically lengthy, and well, Julian couldn't keep up. At a point, it seemed as though it was a match between men and toddlers, and in the second half, it was very evident that they were screwed, as LaMelo and his team tore them down and even began showboating in the second half of the game. The hype surrounding the matchup was really intense, but surprisingly, it meant absolutely nothing to Ball, as he didn't even know who they were playing against. But to the Newmans, it meant everything. It made no sense to compare a 6'7" baller who had even gone pro and come back to a 5x7 point guard who gets bullied on the field every time and has questionable shooting skills. With each passing second, Julian played with intense frustration as he couldn't keep up, and his team, well, couldn't even try to do the same. Spire shot 53% from the field, while their counterparts had only 37% of that. Rebounds were 53-42, and they also out-assisted the Newman boys 14-12. And that's not all. Spire managed to get 14 steals and about 11 blocks, while Downey only managed 6 steals and 0 block. Yikes, that's pretty cold. Spire won the game 117-80, which was a really crazy score, and also highlighted the fact that Julian had a stinker. With some really amazing dunks and smooth basketball plays, Spire showed that Downey should not even be sharing a court with them in the first place. Despite the fact that they were defending most of the time, Spire was still getting reasonable turnovers, and boy oh boy did they make every single one of them count. It was as if anytime they attacked, they scored points, basically like giants walking over a harmless minefield. The 14 steals that Spire Academy recorded made it look like Downey boys were literally handing the ball over to LaMelo and his goons to inflict more pain to the scoreboard. In an unpopular opinion, if Spire took that game seriously, we could be seeing a very scary scoreline at the end of the game. LaMelo also got his famous triple-double, securing 14 points, 12 assists, and 10 rebounds, and hey, he also totaled 5 steals from puny Downey. But don't take anything away from Julian, as he also managed to secure 15 points in total, but bottom line, brother had a stinker. Even with Julian scoring 15 points, one more than LaMelo, it did not in any way prove that he had a better game. The crowd watched, and hell yeah, they loved what they saw. About the loss was one side. It marked the beginning of the end for young Julian Newman, a once dazzling prodigy who captivated audiences as a 5th grader playing varsity basketball. The allure of his flair and the glitz of his early stardom began to fade as the spotlight shifted. The brighter the light shone, the more it seemed to illuminate the reality that Julian was no longer the next big thing many had envisioned. What had once been a promising narrative of talent and ambition slowly unraveled, revealing cracks beneath the surface of the polished image. While Julian was getting constant push from his father and media publicity teams that advertised Julian to the world at large, LaMelo had come a really long way up to that point, and it finally paid off for him as he got his NBA calling, finally, and also made the All-Star team later on. A 6'7" baller or a 5'7" social media enthusiast? Well, everyone knew who their money was on in terms of who would make it to the NBA. That game was a defining moment, silencing every critic who had once dared to rank Julian Newman above LaMelo Ball. It wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. The match left no room for doubt about who the superior talent truly was. LaMelo didn't just live up to the immense hype that surrounded him, he exceeded it, showcasing a level of skill, composure, and court vision that cemented his status as an undeniable force in basketball. After that game, Julian found himself on the receiving end of a humbling lesson, a stark reminder of the gap between potential and reality. LaMelo didn't simply defeat Julian, he tutored him in the most definitive way possible, leaving a lasting impression that echoed far beyond the court. It was clear to everyone watching that LaMelo was destined for greatness, while Julian's shortcomings were laid bare under the spotlight of competition. The moment was not just about basketball, but about a shift in perception, a passing of the torch to a talent who truly embodied what it meant to be the next big thing. In my opinion, the overwhelming influence of social media and the relentless attention from the paparazzi ultimately played a significant role in Julian's downfall. This constant spotlight seemed to erode his focus and determination, traits essential for someone aspiring to excel at the highest level. We don't know, but anything could happen. LaMelo Ball has undeniably lived up to the hype that surrounded him even before he entered the NBA. From his viral high school highlights to becoming an all-star and a leader for the Charlotte Hornets, he's solidified his place as one of the league's brightest young stars. His flashy playmaking, creative scoring, and ability to excite fans have made him a must-watch player. Breaking several records, he still continues breaking more records, as he became the first player in Hornets franchise history to drop at least 30 points and 10 assists in a season-opening game by bagging 34 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds in a 110-105 win over the Houston Rockets. Do you think his style of play and leadership will take him and the Hornets to championship contention? Or do you see him making a move to a bigger market team in the future? If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to watch our next one shown on screen.